Don't encourage him, Eddie. He doesn't need any encouragement, Eddie. We're really honored to have our dear, dear friend back with us in the studio. Exactly 35 years after Charlie Gibson started anchoring Good Morning America, the Emmy winner is making his return to ABC News with daughter Kate for their new podcast, The Bookcase. He cannot. He just has
30.
Has it always been this way?
You're lucky. I had to grow up with that. I had to grow up with that.
No, we were lucky. We were lucky to have you here all these years. And congratulations on this podcast. And you guys coming in hot with that first interview, and it's with Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, I don't think Oprah does too many podcasts.
No.
But a good friend of mine, Richard Scher, and his wife Annabelle, Richard started with her as her co-host in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And he called her up and said, would you do the podcast with Charlie and Kate Gibson? And she said no. No. But she was very gracious.
I think she thought it would be good for her career. And I think it was. I think it was. I think it gave her a boost.
Oprah's going to take off. Yeah. But that podcast has been. Yeah. They say a podcast gets dropped. I didn't know that word. Posted. It's on. As we say, you can find it wherever free podcasts are sold.
First tease of the morning. So I remember when your dad first called me about this podcast. Tell everybody where the idea came from.
I left my job in public television in September of 2019, not knowing that the world was going to literally stop turning 3 months later. So I was interviewing everywhere. I was taking care of 2 kids who were suddenly at home all the time. And I decided I was going to cross books off my bucket list. And that was really how we connected during the pandemic. And I missed him. I couldn't see him. So I missed him. And my husband, who is our producer, David Canada, said, I have a bunch of gear, and your conversations are oddly compelling. Those were the words he used, oddly compelling. And
emphasis on the oddly.
On the oddly.
Yeah.
And then he said, what if I put some gear together and we do a podcast? And I said, don't be silly. There's 1 trillion podcasts out there, and we're old. And he said, no, don't be silly yourself. And he bothered me about it for a year. I think it was a year. He finally wore me down before we made a pilot.
She called me and said, would you do a podcast with me, Dad? And I said, sure. And then I called her back an hour later and said, what's a podcast?
Sometimes it took you an hour.
Yeah, it took me.
It did not take him an hour.
No. But when you were here, literature, your eyes always have just, they light up.
I think my favorite interviews on this program, 2 categories. 1, country music people who are wonderful interviews, and 2, authors. And authors, even though it's a rather solitary profession, and they sit in a room and write and whatever, they're great talkers. Don't you think?
No, absolutely. I remember when you talked to John Irving as well. You introduced me to John Irving.
John Irving and Pat Conroy became friends because I love their writing. Pat's gone now, but he was terrific and always a great guest.
Who's your ideal guest now?
I would love to talk to Stephen King. He's my favorite writer.
He's always great when he's on.
I think I've read everything he's ever written. He was my favorite writer growing up, so I think that made my parents worry about where I was mentally. But he would, if we could get him on the show, I would pant a little. Yeah.
He wrote a terrific book, which both Kate and I revere, called On Writing.
It's terrific.
Oh, yeah.
About how to write, and it's really, really very instructive.
Yeah.
Are you going to write a
book? Since you're a cottage industry now, turning out books.
No. I'm no Allie Whitworth. Go to her book party tomorrow.
Her book comes out next week. You can have her on the podcast.
Excellent.
Have you?
Allie's got a new book coming out?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
You know, for 40 years, I never wrote anything longer than 1:40 for television. And Mark Halperin, who was my political editor for a long time, said just write 200-minute 40s, which is an interesting way of approaching things. But honestly, you know, people would come to me and say, give us the real lowdown on Diane Sawyer. Tell us the real lowdown on Joan London. I'm not going to do that, although there's a lot to tell.
Now I'm going to have to call Diane. Thank you, Charlie.
No. Diane, don't call. Joan, don't call.
Well, also on the podcast.
But Robin, I could have really done it.
No, safe. So don't you all have like some lightning round questions or things that you ask?
Yes.
Each
we
person?
do, and we want to ask you some of these questions.
Yes.
Okay.
George, the most influential book in your life?
I'm going to come at this sideways. It's actually a book, Ulysses by James Joyce, but not really because of the book, because of the professor who taught the book, a professor named Wallace Gray. And he taught us how to read that book in a way that influenced how I read every other book.
Wow.
God bless you, because I had 3 weeks on Ulysses, and
No, but it really was the way it was
life.
taught. It was amazing. Great professor.
Yeah, that's a night. How about you?
It's a daily devotional, Streams in the Desert. I have my grandmother's copy. And so to see her handwriting in the margins, knowing what that particular devotion meant to her, where she was in her life. So I know it's not technically a book, but it's something, when you said it has really impacted, been very influential in my life. Streams in the Desert.
Well, first I just want to say that I'm disappointed you haven't put your glasses on. I thought that was going to be a Gibson moment. We were both going to whip out our glasses, but that's okay. Favorite character in literature?
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that one.
Favorite character? Harry Potter?
Why not?
I did that for you. I did that for you.
I'm blanking.
I don't think of characters, though. That's that when I'm reading.
His first name is Frederick. It's from Flaubert's Sentimental Education. Don't remember the last name.
Yeah. My wife asked me this question last night. I said Wilbur in Charlotte's Web.
Aim high, Dad. Aim high.
I think you and I would say the same thing.
What?
Owen Meany.
Owen Meany, for sure.
He's a great character.
Owen
Yeah.
Meany, for sure.
Yeah.
And I said Harry Potter.
There you go. There you go.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
There you have it.
What's the latest in the evening that you can read, given the show, that you can read and remember what you read?
I try to read a page or two before I fall asleep, but I don't remember any of it. My favorite time is like 4 or 5 p.m. before dinner.
When you're still conscious. I remember those days.
Right after my morning meditation.
Really?
Yeah, right after my morning meditation. But the weekends, oh, that's golden
Different,
time
yeah.
to read.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. All day.
And in 5 words, we stole this question from Stephen Colbert. In 5 words, describe what you would like the rest of your life to be.
Ooh.
John Irving needed a pencil and a paper. He did.
Okay, I'll count them out. Healthy, meaningful, loving, stimulating, and fun.
Mine would be more of a sentence. Joyful because of world peace.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And I never was. I mean,
She went,
that makes up for Harry Potter. That's all it's going to take. I feel like I'm in this congeniality. Oh my gosh, how joyful.
Here she is, Miss America. Here's a Miss America answer.
Okay, give it round for Charlie and Kate Gibson. The bookcase for Charlie and Kate Gibson. Use the QR code on the bottom of your screen to find the first episode. You can download it for free, as Charlie said, wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes released every Thursday.
Wherever they drop.
Yes.
And we're going to come, and where they drop or where they're posted.
I was trying to move on.
And we're going to come back. We are booked for 6 appearances a year on the program to talk about pieces that come out of our podcast.
Oh boy.
And we're going to bedevil you every time we're here.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.